Okay, I now want to bring in Kathleen Canning-Mello. She is a retired FBI profiler who spent over 30 years with the FBI. Kathleen, this is great having you here because I keep thinking of the dynamic, not just in that courtroom, but in the investigation and how the investigators came at this in order to get 5 people charged in a conspiracy. And now that you have 5 people charged in a conspiracy, those 2 women said it's going to be Cora. She'll flip. Do you have any thoughts in the dynamics of this crime as to what's going to happen, what's been happening behind the scenes?
Sure. Thanks for having me, Ashleigh. And I just found that video and your statements about what happened in court today fascinating, especially with the defense attorney. So my take on that was knowing that Cora looked to be the weakest, right? And they all want to put up this strong front, right? This is a united team here, and Cora may be breaking. So this is just my supposition that may have been a subtle message by the defense attorney to buck up. You need to strengthen up and not be so emotional, and sort of get her angry by touching her husband, in a way that was inappropriate, and try to get her to kind of buck up and be strong. That's my kind of take on it. But sure, certainly, and this is what is fascinating in such a terrible crime, that they were able to get 5 people to agree to this heinous act, this murder of these 2 women, and to try to keep it quiet. I mean, it's hard to keep 2 people quiet, and having 5 people who are involved in this crime to the degree that they were, and then try to keep it quiet. It's next to impossible. And we already know that Paul Grice has made a statement, and perhaps Tiffany has as well. But Cora, as a mother, I think she probably has the most to lose, right? And I just want to speak to her daughter, because the affidavit tells us that after Cora came home, she disclosed what happened, right? She said, we have killed these women. And I really give a lot of credit to this young woman, because she had the moral thought to say, well, how are we reconciling this? Certainly, Veronica, you've, I guess, reconciled or rationalized that she's an unfit mother, but why did you have to kill Jillian? Like, what did she have to do with this? And then Cora goes the next step and tells her daughter that she needs to go clean the truck out, which the child knew at that point was involved in this homicide. So what she's done is made her daughter an accessory after the fact. So this is, to me, where the hypocrisy lies, right? These people are promoting themselves as heroes to these children, as saviors to these children, and she has now burdened her daughter with the knowledge that this group and her parents have now committed this heinous act, and could potentially be put to death or certainly serve life in prison. So she's got this now trauma that she has to live with. And she, in her own 16-year-old mind, is thinking, I'm involved in this thing now. They've made me go clean out this truck where there perhaps was blood in this truck.
That is interesting, but I also think that, so the poor kid, right? Because now she kind of knows, oh, dear God, what have I done? I've turned my mom in, and look what it was bigger than I thought. I'm 15, But I also think that as an investigator, couldn't you also, so this is sort of how I'm guessing your mind would work. You could go to Cora and pull her aside and say, hey, guess what? We're going to charge your daughter now. So what else do you want to do for us so that we don't charge your daughter? Yeah, is that happening? Do you assume that is a tactic?
As an investigator, that would be a tactic that I would use for sure, because this is your daughter now who is now involved in this conspiracy. You've drawn her into this conspiracy. You're responsible for what happens to her next. Do you want to see her go to jail for something that you've done, you who purport yourself to be a savior of children?
Yeah.
So I can see why she was the one that was different.
Because listen, Tiffany's son has an alibi. He was in a rehab. He was jailed. He was in rehab, and he wasn't there for any of this. But that doesn't mean you can't be a part of something. You can't be part of planning something. And I wonder if there's still, look, we got 5, and that's a lot. But do you think there's a possibility we may end up with more, or do you think the charging's done now that we're at preliminaries?
I think it's hard to say, and this is another fascinating aspect of this, that they said so many incriminating things to other people who weren't directly involved in the homicide, right? You have Beasley, who had the property, and Callum goes to him and says, "Hey, they're looking at me for the disappearance of these women. I used the skid steer on your property. Make sure you tell them that I was just doing dirt work for you." And then there's another gentleman where Grice goes to him and says, "Hey, how do I get to Mexico? And what is about the resiliency of DNA testing," right? So they're making these incriminating statements to other people. And certainly Wrangler Rickman, the father, he does have an alibi. However, the information in the affidavit disclosed that he had heard conversations from Tiffany about getting rid of Veronica. So he was at least aware before the crime happened that this was the intention moving forward.
Yeah, well, it is such a fascinating story. I just want to be Brian Enton right now in that courtroom, because I wouldn't know who to look at first, second, or longer. I wouldn't know who to gaze at, and I do love doing that. Kathleen Canning-Mello, great to have you on. Thank you so much. We'll have you back. Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider, and don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.